Okay, and we'll have you go first on this next question, Mr. Anderson. A recent report by the U.S. Geological Survey confirmed that a significant amount of surface water is lost to the Yakima River through the pumping of groundwater. No new groundwater permits have been granted in almost 20 years. A state ecology official called these findings sobering and said, "This adds urgency to efforts to tackle the Yakima Basin's water supply needs." What role can and should the state take to address this important issue for our area?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I'm not, that's one issue I haven't looked a whole lot into, and that's a bad thing because I know Republicans can get viewed as not being so ecologically friendly and conscious of what's going on. But it is a big concern. We are very dependent on our water here. I am not aware of all the facts, and I don't think I'd be in a position to actually take a hard stand or make a statement towards one way or the other, because I do not know enough of what's there. I do know that it is important, and we have to have that for our area here. It's vital. And if we are losing, and if we're getting into a position where we're doing damage and running short on water, it'd have to be addressed. As far as how, I have no idea. I don't have the background, but there again, that'd be problems that have to be faced and tackled when they're presented to you.
Thank you. Mr. Delvin?
Well, that's one thing I've worked, the years in the legislature has worked a lot of water issues, be it the Conservancy Board bill that I've had passed that allows movement of water. But really, it's one thing I would look at cutting in our state budget is Department of Ecology. Time and time again, we've given them money to, quote, process water rights and move water, and they've failed miserably. Their stance is they don't want to move water, and any excuse they can find to stop that movement of water, even if a farmer has a water right now and is very efficient in using that water, they don't allow them to spread that onto other land. Using the same amount of water, Department of Ecology will not allow that to happen. It's called the use it or lose it, and farmers are losing their water rights because the Department of Ecology won't allow them to use it, even though they're efficient with that water. So we talk about storage. We ask for storage, and they say, oh, yes, but then we come to site storage. There's always seems to be a roadblock on siting that storage, and that, again, that's Department of Ecology. So, they want it all ways. They want it to sound good. They want to talk good. But when it comes down to actually storing water or moving water, they're not there. And so really, I think we need to have a serious look at the Department of Ecology water program and maybe defund them for a while.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Delvin, you'll go first on this next question. And let's, I'm looking at the clock. Let's have our answers be a minute and a half. The criminal justice system in many states, including ours, is faced with the dilemma of keeping citizens safe while cutting costs. In Missouri, judges are given information on the cost of different sentencing options. Do you have any suggestions on how Washington State might approach the problem of budget cuts versus public safety?
Well, that issue comes up quite a bit in Olympia because when they're tough budgets, it costs money to incarcerate someone, and we always have to be mindful if we pass a law to strengthen penalties of what that cost is to the system. And so a lot of things don't get enhancement in laws, tougher penalties don't get passed because there's a cost to it. States are being innovative, and we need to look at some of those innovations around the country and see if we can do that. Be it giving options for the judges at sentencing. We do have indeterminate sentencing, and so I think a lot of times the judges have discretion on sentences. But we got to be smarter about it. One issue was earlier talked about was about the ankle bracelet. Maybe some of the low-level, non-violent offenders, maybe that's a path for them to take instead of incarcerating them. But certainly we ought to be open to ideas on being better at providing those services.
Thank you. And Mr. Anderson, do you have suggestions how to approach this problem?
Well, I'm my view on that is maybe a little bit more old school, the way I approach things like that. To me, a law is a law, and if whatever law is in place, and as times change, there's need to put new ones in, but whatever a law is there and that law is broken, I firmly believe that that person should be locked away for what they've done and held accountable for their actions. And that's where we're slipping in America right now. It's in all of politics, we're seeing a lack of common sense and a lack of moral sense. If a law is broken, I say put them away, lock them up, and I'm all for, to me, taxing. That's one of the most justifiable forms of a tax you can get, is public safety. And if people are breaking the laws, challenge them, put them away, lock them up, make them to where they are afraid to break the law, rather than let them go. I see the home monitoring as a way, as my wife's a high school teacher. She tells me all the stories of how they push the fence, they push the boundaries. And if to me, my view on that is if you let somebody get away with something small, when they know that the consequences are just going to be a little bracelet around their ankle, and they get to sit around their house all day and watch TV and play video games, they're going to be more inclined to elevate their game and go even farther. I'm all for putting taxes, prioritizing the budget, and making sure the money flows into public safety to where we keep the people safe and make it to where people will not commit crimes.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Anderson, this is our last question, and I'm going to ask you to go first. What legislative goals do you have beyond addressing the state budget? Since you both filed to run for this office as Republicans, how do you plan to be effective and carry out your goals if elected, if the Democrats retain the majority?
Well, one of my, what I think is what's going to get us to get where we need to be is working across the aisle. I know that term's used a lot, and that's where I think I could provide valuable experience of having my union background. I had got appointed, I don't know how this happened, but I was appointed a representative for labor in the contract negotiations. And as I sat there telling them what needed to be, I was called anti-union, and they didn't ask me to come back. And this, but I was trying to push forward to what needed to be said, what needed to be done, and work, making it to let them see both sides. And it's important. You hold on to what you believe in, but let it to where people can see both sides and come together in the middle to accomplish things that need to be done. And aside from the budget, I'm for term limits. I think that to run as an elected official, to get in there full of steam, accomplish your task, and get out. And my task would be to get out and get us back on track, get the budget back in order, and get us back into a bit more common sense and moral sense, and get the community and start to deregulate, and especially as it affects small business, so we put people back to work. Lower taxes for small business and drop some of the regulations to put people back to work. That'd be my number one primary goal, along with making sure that our governor doesn't threaten to take away any funding for our schools or transportation anymore. Seems like every time something comes up, they threaten to take that money away, so you better push this forward. I'd fight to keep those in place.
Thank you. Mr. Delvin.
Well, one thing I've learned in the time I've been in Olympia is how to get things done. Learning the rules of the legislature, and also I found though how to be effective is you build relationships in Olympia, and it's those relationships that get things done. Even relationships with the other party. I think that's why I've been successful in Olympia, is because of those relationships. But the other side, the majority party, know where my core principles are. And so they know what they can come and ask me about, and they know what they can come talk to me about, because they know my core principles. I've always been steady in Olympia, what I stand for, and I don't compromise that. But there's a lot of issues that you can work with your friends across the aisle on. This coming session, of course, the budget's going to be the focus. But here in the Tri-Cities, we have a lot of just local district issues, and I always try to put my district first, but energy is a big thing for our state, and if we don't have the energy strategy right, our economy is not going to grow when we come out of this recession. We're relying too heavily on renewables, not base generation, so we need to, that's going to be a serious problem. Again, water. Water, is time to get over some of those arcane laws in the water law and let's get some action so we can actually increase the economy of this state by agriculture and let the farmers grow crops in this state. So there's other things to work on, certainly, but I think the budget is going to be the overriding thing that's going to dominate the session.
Thank you. Okay, we will now have our closing statements, and we will begin again with you, Mr. Anderson.
Hey, well, again, thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun. As this whole process has started, I've really enjoyed this. Getting out and meeting with the people and hearing what's going on. I want to represent the people. I want to do something positive for the community. I've always been involved for the past 12 years. Been heavily involved in a bunch of different organizations in the community. I was raised on the belief of when you see something going wrong that you don't agree with, don't sit back and talk about it, but jump in the mix and see if you can make it better. Offer yourself to make things better. I've tried to get across to the people that I'm an average guy. I'm a working man that's the same as everybody else. I've never been funded by the state. I've never had taxpayer dollars as a paycheck. I'm out in the private sector, and I think that can appeal to a lot of people. I'm also one who's extremely dedicated. Everything that I've done, I give it everything I have, and that's one of the things that I think Senator Delvin has done a fantastic job. Overall, I think he's done a great job. One of the things that I see is I always watch the voting records, and I don't specifically watch for what they voted for and what they didn't vote for. I saw that Representative Klippert, Representative Haler in the last 2 sessions have missed 0 votes. They have perfect voting, roll call vote attendance. And Mr. Delvin has missed 106. And for me, that came as quite a shock, because a non-vote speaks volumes as much as a vote in a favor or opposition of what it is you might be. In my 10 years of employment at Total Energy where I work, I've had 1 sick day after the death of my mother. I stay and get things done because it has to be done. That's just the way the private sector works. I'd like the opportunity to represent people in the Senate, and appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Delvin?
Well, let me first address my opponent's accusation about the voting. Yeah, I have missed votes because of sickness, family sickness. Over a 4-year period, you're certainly going to miss votes, and that happens. You know, in the House, you have to understand the system. They have someone who can push a button for them. All votes taken in the Senate are by voice roll call. So you have to be present. And I think if you'll look, I'm one of the lowest vote absentee or missed votes in the Senate because people do get sick, and you can't have someone pushing a button there. But just to answer that. But really, I think I've done a very good job. This coming session is going to be very taxing. I think I have the knowledge, the experience, and the leadership to work on that budget. I think we have a good chance of taking the majority, the Republicans taking the majority in the Senate and the House. Even if we get close, we're going to have to sit down with the other party and work on that budget, because in order to get that budget out, it's going to take the middle people working on that budget and not the fringes on both parties. So I think I've represented this district well. I have a strong business support and vote. I don't vote for new taxes. And I wouldn't vote for new taxes. I want a sustainable budget that supports education, because we can do it. Maybe it's taking the budget back to what it was 5-6 years ago and start at that starting point and use that as a reference of what we're going to spend our money on. Even in these tough times that we just passed, we still spent more than the last budget, about 2% more. So tough choices have to be made, and I think I'm qualified and have the knowledge to do that. So I appreciate your vote this election.
Thank you. And thank both of you for spending time with us this evening. Let's give them a hand. And thank all of you for coming out tonight to become better informed citizens. Good night.